So we went to your top 3 horror movies. So
Hmm.
who are your favorite directors? I guess we'll do top 3 just to keep it the same.
So when I was actually writing down this epic list of 40 whatever movies,
Mhm.
almost all of them are different directors.
Really? Okay.
Yeah. I was kind of surprised because I was like, I was curious to see like what the patterns might be. But yeah, almost all of them are different directors. Like I think the only couple like through lines that I saw was obviously Guillermo del Toro because I love
Mhm.
all of his work.
Yeah.
Um, and then the only other one was where is it? Was yeah Robert Eggers who
Oh,
did
okay.
The Witch, The White House, and then Ari Aster, who did Hereditary and Midsummer,
Mm.
which are both like for like the more like for horror movies that have come out more recently are like some of my favorite. Those are just so good.
Okay. I know I've heard a lot about Midsummer. I actually unintentionally watched part of Hereditary
Oh,
because my sister was watching it and I walked in at the end. So I
mm.
know how it ends, but I got there without seeing any of like the scary stuff
Oh
before.
yeah,
um but I remember it being really interesting and she paused it and she's like, Madeline, you should actually probably watch it. She's like, it's not so scary as you think it would be. It's more of like just tension building and there's like a couple of scary things, but not anything that bad. I remember her
yeah.
like, she's like, you should watch this because she's a bit more into scary movies than I am.
Ooh.
Yes.
Yeah. I would, with the exception, with one possible exception, I would recommend like Hereditary is like a relatively good like intro movie. Maybe it's like not quite like intro, but like
Yeah.
one step next after you've
Okay. You're
gone
not.
through like
Yeah, it's like this is the next level. This is level two.
yes,
It's an
yes,
easy two.
yeah, yeah,
This is an easy two. Okay, well that's
yeah.
interesting. I thought for sure you'd have like definite favorite directors, but that's cool that it's spread out.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
think I more look for like themes that are
Mhm.
similar or like
Okay.
storytelling. I think more like storytelling styles that are similar because like
Okay.
I like I like when the I like when the storytelling isn't really obvious. Like with I feel like with both Hereditary, Midsummer, gosh, what was oh yeah, The Witch, and even like the Babadook, it's like the I feel like the director kind of places enough faith in the viewer for them
Mm.
to be able to put pieces together and understand why
Okay.
this situation is like not quite right and why and how that
Mm.
creates that feeling of unsettledness.
Mm-hmm.
Just because I feel like that creates more tension, and I feel like it also helps it feel more real in a certain way
Okay.
because like movies are or at least like a lot of like scary like monster movies, it's like there's that classic thing of like, don't go into the dark room, why are you going into
Yeah.
the dark room, like, or oh of course like the hot lady fell down and is screaming, and like, you know, it's
Yeah.
like there are these things that like make it feel like not real, but so many of the
Right.
things that happened in Hereditary were like, oh no, like I could see this kind of dynamic like happening and it feels more believable. And then
Hmm.
yeah, and then also characters that you care about and are multi-dimensional. So I like
Yeah.
when I'm looking for movies, again, don't necessarily, well now I'm kind of going to start looking for directors because I'm beginning to see some patterns. But yeah,
Uh-huh.
I like more looking for certain styles of storytelling and character development when I'm trying to figure out like what horror movies I like. So,
Okay.
yeah.
Very nice. Well, that's cool. I like that. Okay, so I guess I'll have to reframe this question a bit because it's not really how do you find your favorite directors use horror. I guess how do your favorite storytelling techniques
Mm,
in like the movies you look for, how do they use horror in like a social political commentary? Or I guess for
mm,
you it'd be more of like that human emotion experience.
mm-hmm.
And do you think that some of these movies would have the same impact if they were done in a different film genre or like artistic medium, like in a book
Ooh.
or like in a regular, just normal movie?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think like, okay, I guess to sort of answer the second part of the question first.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like each genre and each medium has, you know, it has its own attributes and, you know,
Mm,
pluses and minuses. And so
yeah.
I think each like form of expression is valid, and
Mm,
is just different. Like
yeah.
you're like if you're reading a book, you may get more explicit descriptions of you know, what an environment, you know, looks like compared to like if you were like listening to like a scary podcast or something like that. But
Uh-huh.
like there won't be that element of like music or,
Yeah.
you know, or just, so I don't know. So it's like
Right.
each one is different.
Mm-hmm.
I think part of what makes horror and I guess in general fantasy or the imaginary unique, and one of the reasons why I like it, I like when people tell human stories through this genre, is
Mm-hmm.
that I think it makes accessing some of those stories more more accessible.
Okay. Yeah.
Like I don't know that I would necessarily seek out a movie about real people dealing with grief, because
Mm-hmm.
or it's because those feelings can be so intense that sometimes it's
Yeah.
like I'm like, I don't know if I want to like put myself in
Right.
this situation.
It's kind of like you when you like sugarcoat a pill or something, right?
Yeah.
It's like I don't want to deal with it on the surface, but like absorbing it is okay. And I
Yeah.
like want to know that I'm not really absorbing it or like processing it.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
I would almost actually argue that you are processing it, but you're
Mm.
almost processing it on a more emotional level compared to an intellectual level, I think, to some
Okay.
degree. Like
Yeah.
cuz I think like when you watch other people, like actors, you know, when
Right.
you see them have emotions of
Hmm.
like I think too, like with both Hereditary and Midsummer, like
Hmm.
both of those movies have, you know, have themes of grief. And I know I
Uh-huh.
keep bringing this up, but it's like it's my most like recent, really like poignant connection with like
Uh-huh.
identifying with horror movies that I just it's just prominent.
Yeah.
Um, so when in both of those scenes, in both of those movies, there are really like intense scenes of people experiencing grief. And
Hmm.
even though I'm not explicitly thinking of my sister, I empathize with what they're going through, and I
Hmm.
physically experience a form of like I physically am processing it, even though I may not be intellectually processing it, if that makes sense. Like I feel my
Hmm.
heart race, I
Yeah.
feel tension in my body,
Hmm.
or I feel like the release of tension. You know, it's just so I
Yeah.
think if that makes sense. But I
It
think
does. Yeah.
okay, okay,
Yeah. I
okay,
think it definitely does.
okay.
Yeah. That's so
Um,
interesting. I never thought of it like reacting like physically to it would help you process it more versus like you're talking about your heart racing and like
yeah.
you'd feel like the emotions coming up. And I think that in a way that like that is almost more helpful for kind of dealing with those things because you understand it better versus like just
Hmm.
intellectualizing it. Because I always talk about how like you can intellectually understand something and then like emotionally understand something. And then it
Yeah,
like
yeah.
so that's so interesting. I like that like kind of comparison for like a scary movie because it makes sense.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I would like to learn a little bit more about that, like from again, like from a
Hmm.
psychological perspective, because the book that I read begins to talk about some of that, and he brings it up in, you know, kind of again through the lens of psychological theories and other, you know, and other he like links it with social and political events of the time.
Hmm.
But it would anyway, yeah, it would be interesting to learn like
Yeah.
more of the science behind that, because these are just my
That
own
would the
musings.
science of
So
fear. That's a great name for a book.
oh yes, time to Google that
Yes.
once we're done.
Trademarked. We've taken it. It's ours.
Yes.
It's probably out there
Oh
already somewhere. Someone has already thought of that.
yeah, yeah. Oh my gosh. But okay, so thinking about like the first part of that question, like with how the storytellers that I like, or the storytelling styles that I like, use political commentary. Um, oh my god, like it's hard to talk about that really broadly because there are so many examples, but I feel like that taps more into like the history loving side of why I love horror. Because like even for movies that I haven't seen, like oh my gosh, I think it was Dawn of the Dead, and oh, I hope I'm not messing this up, but I believe it was Tom Savini who was one of the leaders for doing the practical effects. And he
Okay.
was actually a Vietnam veteran. And one of the
Oh wow.
reasons, like, yeah, yeah. And someone asked him in an interview, like, so how were you able to get like the blood and gore so
Oh.
accurate? And he responded basically by saying like, well, if it didn't look like what I saw when I was in Vietnam, then I knew I had to tweak something. And
Oh,
it's like,
shit.
yeah.
Oh my
Yeah.
God.
So it's like, oh my God. So thinking like, I mean, yeah, like that's just like huge. And
Yeah.
then you had mentioned Get Out earlier,
Mm-hmm.
and it's talking about like racial relations
Yeah.
and all of that. And
Yeah.
I feel like the Babadook even kind of talks a little bit about like class, and there are
Mm.
just I think it's impossible. Well, no, I guess that's an overgeneralization. I think a lot of the horror movies that I like either are reflective of the times to some degree, or like things that are going on,
Mm.
or
Uh-huh.
they tap into like universal human experiences, like grief, like fear of overwhelming forces.
Mm. Mm-hmm.
Oh my gosh, that reminds me actually. Okay, so there's this quote that I found again as I was preparing for this interview. So there's a book or quote from that book that talks about like monsters, because I was thinking like, okay, like what do I like about monsters? And I feel like
Mhm.
they're a kind of like language or like lexicon for human fears and human like experiences. And
Oh, okay.
this quote says, there are forces out there that are stronger than us and overpower us, like the weather,
Mm-hmm.
gravity, politics, our parents, or he says fathers. Monsters can act as symbolic projections of all those frustrations rolled into one beast. And I'm like,
Wow.
that's super interesting. So,
That is very interesting.
yes.
Wow. Yeah, I
So,
definitely need to borrow that book. That's
oh, it's so good. It's so good. I need to
It
write
sounds
that.
awesome. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to some light reading.
Yes.
All right. So, what three movies would you recommend to a viewer like me, someone who's trying to get into the scary movie genre but is still scared of everything?
Oh, okay. All right. So honestly, I didn't come to a full decision with that one.
Ah, yes.
I think I think I think I would recommend Midsummer as one of
Mm,
them,
okay.
because it's more it's more psychological, and actually it's not even really even it's not even like supernatural. Like it's
Mm,
just it's more like emotional
uh-huh.
horror, I guess is how I
Okay.
would describe it.
Yeah.
Um hmm. For something on a little bit of a different note, I feel like Train to Busan is a really, really good zombie
Okay.
horror movie.
Okay.
And the reason that I'd recommend it is that it's like it's very, it almost in some ways like feels a little bit like an action movie, like it's like an
Oh,
action
okay.
horror.
Okay.
Um, but it's the characters are like, you immediately have an attachment to the
Hmm.
characters, and it's like it's
Okay.
essentially a story of like fatherhood and parenthood, but
Oh.
set in a scene of a zombie horror movie.
Oh, wow.
And yeah,
Okay.
and it's not like it's not particularly not it's not particularly violent.
Hmm.
It also doesn't have that kind of general sense of unease that can sometimes be off-putting, like, because the
Uh-huh.
Babadook, I love that movie so much, but I don't know if I would necessarily consider it like a good like introductory one,
Mm,
because the overall sense of like, oh, things are off
yeah.
might be a little bit too much for someone who's like kind of just
Uh-huh.
wanting to get into the
Okay.
genre. So
Uh-huh.
yeah, so Train to Busan,
Hmm.
Midsummer, and we had talked about this before, but Sleepy Hollow as well
Ah,
is
yes.
that is a classic for
That is a
sure.
good one because
Yeah.
it's a I came so you know this, but I've done for
Hmm.
like the past 2 years, I do like a Halloween movie for every day in October, and that's
Yeah.
where I first came upon this, and I didn't think anything of it. I was like, oh, like Sleepy Hollow Johnny Depp, like it's not gonna be scary, and I
Hmm.
was a little surprised. Like it wasn't. It's not like super scary or anything. Like
Yeah.
it's really you can handle it, but I was a little taken aback and watching it with my sister, and we're both like, oh, like this is like, oh,
Yeah,
it's
it
not what I
is.
was expecting. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, but
Sinister
it's
stuff.
not like overwhelmingly
No, yeah,
like,
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. And I think the creepiest thing is when the headless horseman's face is just like, whoa.
Yeah.
Yeah. You're just like, But it's not that bad. It's done in a way, I think, because it's like Johnny Depp and it's young Johnny Depp and he's very like like whimsical.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
just
yeah.
easier to handle because he's like kind of like a comic relief in it too. So
Yeah,
it's just like,
yeah.
okay, I can handle this. And it's
Yeah.
and like we said, it's really not that bad. But
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
yeah.
good. It's definitely a good intro movie. And
Yeah.
it's also like a classic in the sense that it came out like, when did it even come out? Like, I can't even
Like in the
remember.
2000s maybe, I think.
Something, I think maybe
Okay.
like maybe
Maybe
late
not.
90s. I remember that my parents wouldn't let me see it when it first came out.
Ah, so you were definitely okay, so you were young then. So
I was a youngin', yeah. I
yeah.
was probably in like 6th grade or something, which would have
Mhm.
been, yeah. And yeah, so it's either, yeah, super super early 2000s or really late 90s.
Yeah, it has that vibe where it's like one of those border. It's like a border. It could be
Yes.
either one.
Oh
Yeah.
my god. I
Mm.
feel like this is another like little bit of like a classic, but another like decent introductory one
Mhm.
is What Lies Beneath. And that
Mhm.
came out again, I think like late 90s, early 2000s. And
Mhm.
like I think rewatching it, it would seem a little bit dated, but that was a movie that like it was another one that like got me into the horror genre
Yeah.
because it was like a
Okay.
little supernatural, a little spooky,
Uh-huh.
not super gory. It has Harrison Ford and
Oh, I'm in. I love
Michelle
Harrison
Pfeiffer.
Ford.
I know, right?
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
That's
yeah, yeah.
awesome.
So that's another
Wow.
good one.
That's a good one. Okay, all right. I'm interested. I'm intrigued. All right.
Yes.
Lindsay Dillon, what, in your opinion, is the scariest movie of all time? Something that shook you to your
Mm. Oh my god. Oh my god, that's really hard.
core.
Like, oh my gosh. I think, oh my gosh, this is really hard. Because it's like, because there are movies that like freaked me out like in the moment, but there haven't been like that many movies that like make me scared to like turn out the light, you
Ooh,
know?
okay. Mm-hmm.
Um, I think I almost want to say, and again, it's been a while since I've seen this, but I think I remember Insidious when Insidious came out.
Mm-hmm.
And actually, I think if I remember, that's the same director who did The Conjuring, I think.
Oh, I think so.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but I remember like I saw that movie when I was in college when it came out in theaters, and I was literally like I don't know how you can see, but I was like curled up in the movie seat with my fingers on my ears
Oh God.
because I was so like freaked out and scared and like so tense, but in the most like a lighthearted tense way, not like oh
Uh-huh.
god things are fundamentally like weird like tense way, but like
Yeah.
holy shit what's gonna come out of the darkness because I'm actually scared.
Oh God.
Like so so I would probably like at least for one of the scariest movies it would either be Insidious
Mm-hmm.
or Paranormal Activity. The first one I
Ah,
haven't seen. I don't think I've seen any of the other ones that have
I
come
don't even
out.
know how many of them there are.
So
There's so
many,
many of them.
so many. But the original one, because it is so close to home, it feels like it could just be you
Mhm.
and your partner like experiencing all of this. Like I
Yeah.
have a Ouija board in my house and I keep it in the closet so that Cody,
You
my
don't want it
boyfriend,
near
doesn't know
you.
that I have it. Yeah. I mean, he knows that I have it, but like we don't like bring it out because like that's just like a that's like a it's like a too
Just
much kind of
asking
thing.
for trouble.
It's just asking for trouble. Yeah. So yeah, so I think movies that scared me and kept me scared even after I left the theater would be Insidious and the first Paranormal Activity.
Okay, so those are the ones I need to avoid. Got it. That's it.
Oh my god, the Paranormal Activity is so good though. Oh my god. So
I remember
yes,
seeing
it's
trailers for it, and I was just like, hell no.
oh my god, I like legit might go home and watch that today. Like
That's gonna be like that's the last level. I need to work my way up to.
oh, you'll get there. You'll get there.
Uh,
I'm so excited that you are interested in exploring the horror genre yourself and helping other people, you know, kind of dip their toes into the water because it has like the genre itself has so many associations and like thinking about how for like film awards there's not a genre for horror is really interesting,
yeah.
you know?
Mm-hmm.
But it's like so it's
Yep.
like it's in some ways not considered like high art or like quality
Right. Which it
media or
should
whatever,
be.
but
I
it
feel
should be,
like
yeah.
there's a lot of good writing and storytelling that's done
Oh,
for it. Yeah.
yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So I'm glad you're helping more folks, you know,
Yes.
get into it, join the dark side, so to speak.
Join the dark
Walk down
side.
that dark hallway to join us.
We'll be there with snacks and pillows.
Oh,
Or screaming.
yes. I love it. I love it.
All right. Well, thank
Oh.
you all for joining us. This has been me, Maddie Atlee, joined by Lindsey Dillon, who y'all should check out her ceramic Instagram page. It's incredible. Is it at Lindsey M Dillon?
Yes, Lindsey M Dillon. Lindsey M as in monster. Dillon Dillon.
Perfect. All right. We'll be tuning in to your personal screen sometime soon. Yay!